රිවයින් කරන්න පුළුවන් නිසා මුකුත් මගේ වෙන්නේ.
BOTV TV බලන හොඳම විදිහ.
Good evening. Tonight, a rising crime spree. 3 murdered and several injured in 2 separate shooting incidents in the nation's capital. Experts call for proper coordination to stop the crime spree.
So it is important that we look at a whole range of institutions and see how best we could restore their basic functions.
A bloated image. President Maithripala Sirisena says the media has failed to show the real progress the country has made. Not so true. The joint opposition claims that the country has no proper leadership.
So the government is on its last legs, there is no doubt about it. Its lifetime is very limited.
World City Summit. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says the 3-tier governing system in Sri Lanka needs to be restructured for a smooth development of modern projects.
It is inevitable then that we must reconsider the structure of our local government.
And in international headlines, PM in trouble. Boris Johnson resigns in major Brexit blow to UK Prime Minister Theresa May. It is 9 o'clock on the dot. This is First at 9 on Other Derana 24/7, Sri Lanka's news channel. Hello everyone, I'm Mahesh Johnny. From a crime spree to a heroic rescue mission in Thailand, that is our rundown for tonight. So let's begin with a look at local news. Now, a spree of shooting incidents are being reported from the nation's capital tonight, killing 3 people and injuring several others. These incidents were reported from Jampeta Street and Chetty Street in the capital's financial hub. From the shooting that occurred in Chetty Street, a member of the Colombo Municipal Council was shot and later succumbed to his injuries after being admitted to the Colombo National Hospital.
Colombo Municipal Councillor Krishna Pillai Kirubanandan was the victim of the shooting incident that occurred near a fruit stall in Chetty Street. At around 7 in the morning, the municipal councillor was opening his shop for business when a person who arrived on a motorcycle shot him and then fled the scene. Soon after the incident, the municipal councillor was admitted to the Colombo National Hospital, where medical officials pronounced him dead upon admission. Krishna Pillai Kirubanandan is a member of the Navodaya People's Front and was elected to the Colombo Municipal Council from the recently concluded elections. CCTV caught the assailant who arrived to shoot the councillor. Investigations are now underway to arrest the culprit after initial inquiry that was conducted by the magistrate concluded. Meanwhile, at approximately around 8:15 last night, a shooting incident that occurred in Jampeta Street in Colombo killed 2 members of the same family. Witnesses told the police that the 2 people who arrived on a motorcycle carried out the shooting. The victims were identified as Selvaya Selvaraja, who was 58 years old, and his wife Elizabeth Pereira, who was 50 years old. 2 more males were injured in the incident and are currently receiving treatment at the National Hospital. The victims were reported to be fishmongers. Initial investigations revealed that the killing would have been a result of the 2 victims refusing to cooperate in giving evidence to another shooting that has occurred in the 137 estate in Jampeta Street. During the span of 30 days, 6 incidents of shooting have been reported from across the island. On the 12th of June, the chief incumbent of Kirivihera, Venerable Kobawaka Dhamminda Thera, was shot at by a group of individuals. On the 22nd of June, 1 police officer who was injured during the gunfire exchange at Mathura with an armed gang who attempted to rob a jewelry shop was arrested by police. Recently, 2 shooting incidents were reported from unidentified individuals in Kotahena and Ratmalana. 2 were left injured. 2 weeks ago, on the 25th of June, a key accomplice of Makandure Madushka, Manel Rohana, was killed in crossfire with police. He was armed during the incident. However, these are just few isolated incidents. When First at 9 took a look at the statistics by Sri Lanka Police, it is evident that gun-related incidents have averaged around the 100 mark within the past 5 years. Speaking to First at 9, former chairman of the National Police Commission, Professor Siri Hettige, said that steps need to be taken to activate institutions that are designed to provide public security.
I think the sense of security that we have in the country, particularly among lower income groups, is a major factor. In fact, we have a very vast informal economy where the conditions of work are really not really desirable. And then we have nearly 75% of our people being left out of any form of social security, which means that we have a large proportion of the population left out of social security systems, and therefore they have to basically find their own way. And some people might resort to criminal activities. So it is important that we look at a whole range of institutions and see how best we could restore their basic functions and get them activated so that they will be able to deal with a lot of the factors that contribute to crime.
President Maithripala Sirisena states that there is no such instability in the country and blames the media for creating a hype on the matter. The president made this statement while participating in the opening of the new Agrarian Services Centre at Valikanda today.
The new Agrarian Service Centre at Valikanda was declared open by President Maithripala Sirisena today.
I went to meet the people who were severely affected by the droughts in the area of Anuradhapura last year. They told me that they have no food to eat. I contacted the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister via telephone and told them we should immediately supply them with relief items. By now, we have provided billions of rupees for the people who were affected by the drought. No government has provided as much as we did. When you switch on the television, you will see none of that. All news contains political conflicts. The news that is being broadcasted indicates that the country is in disarray. We as a government have successfully implemented measures to build the country and we will continue to do that. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the current tiers of governance in Sri Lanka needs to change in order to ensure its ability to face modern development. He says the levels of central, provincial and local has become a massive hindrance during coordination process when implementing mega projects undertaken by the government. The Premier made these remarks delivering the keynote address at the World Cities Summit currently underway in Singapore.
The World Cities Summit was held today under the theme Livable and Sustainable Cities, Embracing the Future Through Innovation and Collaboration, where Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe delivered the keynote address.
The key thrust of the Sri Lankan initiative will be the Western megapolis and the two connecting corridors, which will cover 9 million people. The mega infrastructure includes the development of the ports of Colombo and Hambantota in the south, the new landfill project adjacent to the Colombo port, which is planned as an offshore financial center. 4 special economic zones will provide the infrastructure for industry. The biggest issue in the management of megacities is that they involve many levels of government and local authorities. Political power in many of our countries were distributed between the central government, the provinces and the local authorities in the last century, when the concepts such as megacities and global connectivity had not even been thought of. Given that we will now have to exercise these powers for completely different objectives in a completely different environment, it is inevitable then that we must reconsider the structure of our local government.
Following his keynote address, the Prime Minister also joined in a question and answer session.
Well, there's a lot of investments going on. It is less clear to me how the city is thinking about working around all the very complex institutional arrangements around Metro Colombo, so I wanted to hear some views on the strategy going forward.
Looking at the redevelopment of Colombo for the last few years, there have been earlier reports done by the Sri Lankan authorities of developing urban centers within Western Province, but it seems more sensible that the whole of the Western Province be developed as a series of interconnected cities becoming a large megapolis. That's the same plan we revived in 2015. But at the next stage, we will have to bring in laws where decision making is by a single authority in which all these stakeholders are represented. If we don't do that, it's going to be very difficult. You're going to slow down the progress because in addition to the megapolis, now we have to do the same thing on the 2 urban corridors.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says though he does not approve or condone the statement by parliamentarian Vijayakala Maheswaran, it gives a message that the present government has failed to keep its promises given to the Tamil community. The former president made this remark today participating at a religious ceremony in Badulla.
The statement is wrong and it is very clear. But there is something not discussed here. The government has not kept its promises given to the Tamil people. In other way, they say this government cheated us. Muslim community has also been cheated. This is a government where the whole country has been cheated. That is the failure of the government. It doesn't take due actions. I watched last night on television rape cases, murders and several other cases. No change in the south from the north.
Meanwhile, the former head of state also spoke on the current status of the country while taking part in the Badulla Janapowder program.
This harbour was sold. A harbour is an asset for a developing country. Mattala Airport is going to be sold as well. They are planning to sell Palali as well. It is the same fate for the Shrinkamali harbour too. This government has sold everything in Mattala, the ground, the sky and the runways. I think if this was continued, nothing will remain for the future generations.
Tamil National Alliance parliamentarian M.A. Sumantharan is of the view that the failure of the southern leadership in keeping its promises to the Tamil people itself promotes the rise of the LTTE. He made this comment to First at 9 while supporting the context former Minister Vijayakala Maheswaran made her statement in Jaffna. Meanwhile, the Communist Party calls to take action as per the Constitution on the statement made by the former minister.
The Tamil National Alliance says now that we are willing to settle the matter on the basis of all of those proposals that were made by successive governments. When we say that, the southern political leadership seems to say that those were offered at a time when the LTTE was around. And now that the LTTE is not there, it is not necessary to make those offers. Now this is a very, very dangerous message that the southern political leadership is giving to the Tamil people. In effect, what they are saying is that you bring the LTTE again and we can offer the same. This is akin to what State Minister Vijayakala Maheswaran said in Jaffna.
All members of parliament are required to take an oath that they will not support the division of the country and separatism. Having given such a note, Mrs. Vijayakala Maheswaran has patently violated the law. But this cannot be attended to. She could be punished. We value the unitary character of our country. She should be dealt with under the provisions of the law.
The chairman of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Piris, accuses the government for lack of leadership in governing the country. The professor is of the view that the government has foregone their responsibilities towards the people and are purely engaging in prosecuting the Rajapaksas. He also said that the government has managed to deter foreign relations with China and Russia on petty grounds.
Today it has become abundantly clear that Sri Lanka is a country without a government. We have become the laughing stock of the world. It is like the Mad Hatter's Tea Party in Alice in Wonderland. How many governments are there in this country? The country is on autopilot. There is no leadership, there is no direction. What is the role of the cabinet? Once the decisions are taken, are those applicable only to some ministries and not to other ministries? So what we have is a totally chaotic situation. Now, under these circumstances, how can there be confidence even at the basic level? It is also the case that foreign relations are being completely messed up by this government. They are obsessed with pursuing the Rajapaksas. It is now clear that the article in the New York Times was inspired by internal sources. The government has made an allegation that Russia is funding some kind of propaganda unit that is being run by us, by the joint opposition. Totally false. Both Russia and China are members of the United Nations Security Council. They are major voices in world affairs. And the government of Sri Lanka, for very narrow purposes, is prepared to endanger our goodwill with those countries. So the government is on its last legs, there is no doubt about it. Its lifetime is very limited.
General Secretary of the United National Party, Minister Akila Viraj Karyawasam, says that former President Mahinda Rajapaksa should make a statement in the parliament regarding the New York Times expose which links him and his presidential bid back in 2015 of receiving funds from China Harbour Company, which is the same company now running the Hambantota port. Minister Karyawasam made this remark today participating at a function in Colombo.
New York Times පුවත්පතේ සඳහන් වූ කාරණාව පිළිබඳව.
Former president so far has not made a statement in parliament over the New York Times allegations. Prime Minister asked him to make a statement. People who pointed their fingers at the UNP is now reaping its benefits. When you throw stones from glass houses, this is what happens. No use of making allegations against the New York Times. Once just after the war, New York Times said that Sri Lanka is the safest country to visit. Then the previous government appreciated their article.
New York Times පුවත්පත අගයන විදිහට කටයුතු කරන ලැබුවා.
Meanwhile, UNP MP Tushara Indunil responded to questions raised by media personnel over the bringing back of former Central Bank Governor Arjuna Mahendran to Sri Lanka.
Well, as you say, if Mr. Wickremesinghe has kept Mr. Mahendra in somewhere, he can bring him back. But if he is in an unknown place to Mr. Wickremesinghe, he can't bring him back. But if former President Mahinda Rajapaksa kept Mr. Weerathunga in a place known to him, he can bring him here. Therefore, don't compare these two incidents.
General Secretary of the Socialist Alliance, Attorney at Law Raja Kollure, accuses the United National Party of using assets of the government for political purposes. Speaking at a media briefing held in Colombo today, he highlighted that the United National Party intends to invigorate the activities of their party through such attempts.
The attempt of the government to use the assets and property of the government to serve the UNP as a party for political reasons. This attempt is made, not only an attempt, in fact, some steps have already been taken. It is to provide certain benefits to UNP members and UNP organizations at the expense of the government. Their intention is to invigorate UNP activity by helping their cadres. But this is not fair. UNP is not entitled to use government assets and property to bolster up its own membership or to help the party to face elections.
General Secretary of the United National Freedom Front, Maitri Gunaratne, says that the country's first special high court to try high-profile financial fraud and corruption cases is another example of the government's attempt to cover up their failures. He also said that while expediting the hearing of large-scale financial fraud and corruption cases, government should not neglect other cases that are being dragged for a longer period of time.
A senior judge of the Supreme Court has given a report to say that for a criminal case to be concluded, it takes an average of 15 years. This is a serious indictment on the judicial system. The cases which are filed by the Attorney General, only 4% of the cases filed by the Attorney General reach a conviction. That clearly goes to show if 100 cases are filed by the Honorable Attorney General, 96 of them are acquitted. So this is a very sad state of affairs. But the government from time to time, to cure their lapses, to cover their lapses, now what they have done is they have brought a new act to hear large-scale fraud and corruption. That is a very good thing. It has to be heard fast and concluded. But all cases must be treated equally. Inasmuch as large-scale fraud and corruption is important, a person who has been charged with bribery on a false charge, he also needs to finish his case as fast as possible. So I don't think that a different system should be adapted for different people, because all are equal before the law. So if the authorities forget that all are equal before the law, God help the country and its people.
Well, time now to take you across Sri Lanka with information on several stories that is making the news.
Singer Priyani Jayasinghe was found stabbed to death yesterday at her home in Panadura. The murder had been committed using a pair of scissors, and the police suspects her husband. Accordingly, the singer's husband was arrested this morning on charges of murder. A tense situation occurred at the Divisional Secretariat in Horana during the Regional Development and Coordination meeting. Kalutara District MP Vidura Vikramanayaka arrived along with several Pradeshia Sabha members and claimed that no one was informed of the meeting. The tense situation prevailed for almost 20 minutes and later on the parliamentarian left the premises. Nearly 60 people have been injured and hospitalized following a collision between two private buses in Gokaralla, Malsiripura. A collision between a bus travelling from Jaffna to Ambilipitia and a bus travelling from Ambilipitia to Jaffna has caused this accident. Reportedly among the injured are a monk, a Buddhist nun and the two drivers of the buses. Over 700 acres of forest was destroyed yesterday due to a fire at Small Adams Peak in Ella. The area is considered to have the highest levels of oxygen in the atmosphere. Investigations are underway by the police to determine the cause of the fire.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Business news now. Sampath Bank was recognized as Sri Lanka's best retail bank and best commercial bank for the 5th consecutive year at the World Finance Banking Awards awarded by UK-based World Finance magazine. Being the only Sri Lankan bank to have been recognized at this year's event, the award organizers say that the award is a reflection of the strong growth in Sampath Bank's overall profitability, its healthy liquidity levels, higher earnings per share, dividends and returns to shareholders in general, and the consistent growth in its market share in both assets and liability class products and services. The World Finance magazine states that the 2018 edition of the awards have sought to identify the banks that have successfully held their portfolio during the period of uncertainty. Let's take you to the stock markets now. Stocks were lower after the close today as losses in the motor, trading and healthcare sectors led shares lower. At the close, the CSE all share fell 0.51%. Let's get a detailed picture, and for that, let's cross over to Imeshi Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange.
The benchmark all-share price index lost 31.39 points to close at 6,077.32, while the S&P Sri Lanka 20 index lost 25.29 points to close at 3,298.23. The turnover was 154.88 million rupees, with 5.9 million shares changing hands in 2,436 trades. The market capitalization at the end of the day was 2,838.95 billion rupees. Today's foreign purchases were 16.7 million rupees and foreign sales were 39.59 million rupees.
International news now. Operations are now halted for the day in Thailand after 4 more boys were rescued during today's operations. All of the rescued boys were medevaced from the cave site to several hospitals in the region. The boys, all part of a youth soccer team known as the Wild Boars, first went missing over 2 weeks ago. Now, last Monday, they were discovered huddled on a narrow shelf of rock deep within the flooded cave system.
The boys became trapped in the cave on 23rd of June after heavy rains caused flooding, but were found alive last week by divers. Rescuers decided to go ahead with the operation to free them because of fears that waters would rise again. Rescue Mission Chief said it had resumed, with divers re-entering the cave at 11 local time. It was expected to end by 9 and more personnel were being used than on Sunday. The names of the rescued boys have not been released out of respect for the families whose sons were still inside, and they have not been reunited with their own families. Rescuers took advantage of a break in the rain yesterday to launch the mission earlier than some expected. The first stage of the mission ran smoothly and the rescued boys were in good health, according to the Thai authorities. A team of 90 expert divers, 40 from Thailand and 50 from overseas, has been working in the cave system. They have been guiding the boys through darkness and submerged passageways towards the mouth of the Tham Luang cave system.
The crisis faced by Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May deepened significantly today when one of her most senior cabinet members, Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, resigned just about 2 hours ago. Johnson's decision to leave the government came just hours after the resignation of the minister in charge of Brexit negotiation, David Davis. Meanwhile, Dominic Raab has been appointed as the next Brexit secretary by Theresa May. All these events leaves her plan for Britain's future relationship with the European Union in tatters just 3 days after it was agreed with her divided cabinet. It also puts her own political future under threat.
The resignation is a blow to Theresa May as she seeks to win over Eurosceptic MPs to her proposed Brexit vision, which would form the basis of the UK's position in ongoing talks with the EU. The UK is due to leave the European Union on 29 March 2019 after a referendum was held in 2016, but the two sides have yet to agree how trade will work between the UK and the EU afterwards. The entire cabinet spent over 12 hours on Friday thrashing out proposals which will act as the basis for what the British government would like UK's future relationship with the EU to look like. David Davis was among those who agreed to the proposals, but he said he waited until Sunday before quitting because he had wanted to mull over the decision.
It was also known that I had concerns about it. It would not have been a plausible thing to do, and I wouldn't have done a good job at it.
But you have weakened her, haven't you? There's no question about that.
No, look,
oh, come on, look at the coverage of your resignation.
Yeah,
all right.
it's one day. You know, she's got to have a Brexit secretary who will deliver on her strategy. That's not weakening. That's actually enhancing the effectiveness of the strategy.
His deputy in the Department for Exiting the EU, Steve Baker, also quit. Dominic Raab, a Brexiteer who took over the role of negotiating with Brussels the detail of the UK's Brexit agreement, was previously a housing minister in the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government under Secretary of State James Brokenshire. His job will be to convince the European Union, whose negotiators are led by Michael Barnier, that the PM's plan for a new UK-EU free trade area for goods provides the best framework for a relationship after Brexit.
Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
And that is a part of your world tonight right here on Other Derana 24/7, Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Mahesh Johnny. First at 9, we'll return tomorrow at the same time. Be sure to join us then. Before we wrap things up for tonight, we'd like to take you to the Ambuluava Biodiversity Complex in Gampola. Ambuluava Peak, situated in the centre of Gampola Kingdom, is established by the great Sinhala king Buwanekabahu I. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.